By changing your breathing rate, you can change how you feel, you can change how you sleep, you can change your emotions.
You described Moonbird as breathing like a bird in your hand.
Our breath is a tool.
You've called breathing kind of like the remote control of your nervous system.
And we can actively use it to regulate our nervous system and to change our mood.
Heart rate variability is essentially the variation in time between heartbeats.
Why should I need a breathwork coach? Because I am already breathing the whole day, right?
You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
Source of truth for the Medtech industry.
Coexists with the puppets.
Robot understands things automatically.
#1 show in the Medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the $90 billion company that helped apply a lot of things.
You stayed in Medtech with your host, Omar M. Khatib.
All right, here we go. So does anybody ever look at your product and say, wow, this really took my breath away? Oh, it was a bad dad joke. Bad dad joke.
When you got exactly that when you got the kids, those jokes.
You know, I'm telling you, it's gonna happen now. That now you're entered parenthood. Like, you got to start getting. There's definitely mom jokes and mom moments. So you got to start practicing from now.
Exactly. I'm gonna use that one from now onward.
Awesome. Well, everybody, welcome back to the show. This is an episode that I actually, on rare occasion, I find out about a company that I get so excited about and interested that I personally reach out to the founder. This is one of them. I believe you guys were on like Time Best Innovations, or what was the award that you guys had received?
Yeah, Time Best Inventions for Sleep. Exactly.
There we go. And so the audience knows from me, in all the biohacking and longevity research that I've done, there are two things that I've identified that literally, if you get these two things right, you'll be extremely healthy. You'll live a pretty long and happy life. And that is optimizing your sleep and reducing stress. Mm-hmm. And so breathwork is one of those things, one of the few things actually does two of those things. And so for that, I came across this really cool company with a great name called Moonbird. It's a health tech product, right? And joining us is their founder, Stephanie Bruce, all the way from Belgium, yes, who is now also a new mom. And so aside from being a founder and a mother, is up at 10 p.m. a night, coming on the show to talk about the product and the company. And so, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, for giving us the opportunity to explain what we do at Moonbird.
Absolutely. So maybe, a first place to start, before I have a whole list of questions I want to ask you, but like, maybe tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Like, where did you grow up? What was your background, education, and, what were you doing before you started Moonbird?
Yeah. So I'm a scientist by training, actually. I have studied biomedical sciences, and I've got a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. So I guess I've always had an interest in, what makes us sick, but also what keeps us healthy. And I learned everything about the pharmacological side of what we can do to keep ourselves healthy. But I was also always myself very interested in, those alternative stuff that we can do ourselves. And for me, that is where it really started, was yoga, mindful movement techniques. And it's through yoga that I then discovered meditation and then ultimately breathwork. But after my PhD, I wanted to leave the academic space. And so I really wanted to learn about the startup environment. And so I worked at two other startup companies before. One was a medical device company where I had a business development role. And then I joined a consumer brand that makes e-bikes. And there I had a more operational role. And it's after that journey that I actually had a job in New York, because I've always wanted to move to the US. And, in my quest of having that job and just doing a lot of research in, what I really wanted to do in my life and what my purpose was, which I call my ikigai, which is, a Japanese concept that a lot of people know today. I actually discovered that I wanted to do something what was keeping me busy, which was breathwork at that time. And then I decided to ultimately start Moonbird, the company.
That's awesome. So how did your interest in breathwork essentially get started? For me, when we did our research, it seemed like, at least from our notes, it was Insomnia that started this. Was that true?
Yeah, that's my journey with breathwork. So while I was studying, I already discovered yoga and then meditation. but actually it's during my PhD time that I developed sleeping issues because of, all the pressure that builds up towards the end of your dissertation. I had a lot of pressure, I had a lot of stress, and that kept me awake at night. And there were nights that I literally could not sleep. And that is so impactful for a person. It's to your point, you just mentioned there are two things that are really important to manage, and that is sleep and stress. And so I was dealing with a lot of stress and sleep at that time. A lot of stress and not a lot of sleep, actually. And so I dove into the science, and I was looking for these healthy ways to tackle that and to deal with those sleeping issues. And I discovered breathwork, which back then I thought, I know meditation. What is breathwork actually? Isn't it all the same thing? And I just thought that, you meditate on your breath most often, so that must be breathwork. But when I looked at the science and I saw how different it is, because with breathwork, you start to regulate your breathing rate, and how impactful that can be within a couple of minutes or seconds, I was flabbergasted. I just wanted to try this out myself, and I did, and it was amazing what it can do.
Amazing. And, I'm going to bring up the product for a moment. For those who are watching on Spotify and YouTube, you can see the picture of it. But, you described Moonbird as breathing like a bird in your hand. And I wonder, as we bring up the product, if you can talk about like where that form factor came in from and what was the hardest part about designing something, that's intuitive, but, at the same time, tech driven. So as you state that, let me pull up the image here. For those who are interested to look at the product, also even purchase it, you can go to moonbird.life. That's MOON like the moon, and bird .life. So let's take a quick look. Here is the product, and it does actually look like it fits literally in the palm of your hand, very much like a little bird. So talk to us a little bit more about that, about the form factor and everything.
Yeah. So while I was doing these breathing exercises to help myself fall asleep, I realized that I had issues sticking to the rhythm. I couldn't keep my focus because my minds were, my thoughts were just always taking a lead, and I couldn't keep my focus. And so I tried all different meditation apps, and I'm a huge fan of Headspace and Calm. But when you're dealing with sleeping issues or a panic attack, you just don't want to be glued to your screen anymore. Right. So that's when I was like, okay, how can I guide myself in a different way rather than looking at my screen or then listening to an audio guide? Because this.
And I got to comment on this. I feel like I'm like your perfect early adopter, because this is my issue. So I was actually an early adopter of Headspace. I still meditate, but I think my record was like 3.5 years meditating daily. And I got to meet Andy and Rich, and I went to the Headspace headquarters. This is like many years ago, like before I had a company, before I had anything.
Oh my.
But the problem,
Oh.
yeah, but the problem was that like especially for me in the morning, it's okay, but at night, I'm trying not to like look at my phone or play with it or anything, and you have to log into these apps to turn them on and everything.
Exactly. That's the last thing you want to do when you're struggling with sleeping issues, right? That you need that extra guidance, because it's very difficult to do these things on your own, especially when you're struggling with stress or stress thoughts. But when you're in your bed, it's just, you don't want to use your phone to do these exercises. So that was when my mind was like literally awake and thinking, how can I guide myself in a different way? What other senses can we use? And so that's when I thought of the sense of touch, which is a very old way of communicating, right? It's why we hug each other. It's why children have teddy bears. It's a very natural and soothing form of communicating towards each other. And so I thought of this really organic way of guiding myself, like holding a device that would expand and contract. And you basically just have to pace your rhythm with the cadence given by this product. Like you would hold, a teddy bear that breathes for you, or something very organic. And it had to be small. It needed to fit in the palm of your hand, because I really wanted to enable people also to take it to their work when they have anxiety attacks, and they're in the work or in the supermarket or on the go or on the subway or whatever. Like, it needed to be pocket sized. And so my brother came over for dinner one night, and I introduced the idea to him of a breathing ball it was back then, and he actually loved the idea. And so we had a basket in front of us with different fruits and vegetables, and we literally just took all of them. It was like a lemon, an avocado, a pear, and so ultimately the avocado was the shape that fitted really nice in our hand, and that's really how it started. It was like a breathing avocado that helps you to pace your breathing in a very intuitive way. That's basically the idea.
Amazing. And so how it start with an avocado. So how did the name Moonbird come to be?
That's a funny story, actually. So my parents are aviation fans. My dad's a pilot. My mom was a stewardess, and they're a bit mesmerized by birds. And so they read a story in the newspaper one day about a bird called the Moonbird. It's a real bird, but actually it's a red knot. He has his own Wikipedia page. And so scientists have followed this bird throughout his entire life, and they measured that over the course of his life, every year he flew from Canada to Argentina, to the Terra del Fuego in Argentina. And over the span of his life, he flew more from the distance from the Earth to the moon and back. And so that's why this name was called the Moonbird. And he's a sign of longevity, of health, of recovery, of, just being fit. And we love that name, actually.
I love that. You've called breathing kind of like the remote control of your nervous system. Can you walk us through like maybe a real life situation, say somebody mid panic attack or something, and explain, physiologically like what's happening to their body, when something like a stressful moment or something happens, and then like how does a Moonbird application essentially change and influence those physiological effects?
Yeah, so we have a nervous system in our body consisting of a nervous system under our control, but also a part that's not under our control. That's the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomous nervous system has two branches. It has the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the first one, it acts like a gas pedal. It's the one that accelerates us. It's the one that's also called the fight, flight, freeze response that I think a lot of people nowadays have heard of. And so basically what happens when you're having a panic attack is you're firing on that gas pedal. You're accelerating your heart rate. You're accelerating your breathing rate. Your pupils dilate. This whole stress reaction is triggered. Like, a train is about to hit you, or whatever, a car is about to hit you. You jump away, you're scared, you're like, oh my God, this thing was about to happen. And you get this rush of adrenaline in your body, you got elevated cortisol levels and so on. This is like a whole gas pedal that's activated. And then you have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brake pedal. And that's the one that decelerates us. It's the one that relaxes us. It's also called the rest and digest response. And so it innervates the same organs as the sympathetic nervous system, but it actually slows down your heart rate. It slows down your breathing rate. You flow more blood to your digestive system, to your sexual organs and so on. That's why people who are like really relaxed, they have less digestive issues, they're more sexually aroused, they're more creative, they can more think out of the box and so on. And so it's really important to balance these two nervous systems. It's also good to be stressed sometimes, right? I want to be sharp for this podcast, so I want my sympathetic nervous system to be activated a little bit. But we need to balance that with, rest and digest. And that's why we really want to activate the brake pedal enough as well. And so we can go running or read a book or whatever. But our mission at Moonbird is really to show people or make people aware of the fact that our breath is actually a very easy tool that we can use to regulate ourselves, to regulate our nervous system, and to shift between these two modes. By, for instance, accelerating our breathing rate, we can tap into, that stressed state, which for some short moments in time can be also beneficial because it, gives your immune system a boost. But we also want to decelerate, and by slowing down our breathing rate, we can tap into that relaxation system. And that's it's one of the most powerful and easy tools that we actually possess. That's our breath, but we just don't realize that. And so we really want to make sure that people come to understand that by changing your breathing rate, you can change how you feel, you can change how you sleep, you can change your emotions. It's so powerful, but we're just not aware of it.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this kind of is a good step into like the next thing I want to mention, which is like, so for me, how I got personally into breath work and my interest, and I think for the audience as well, is, since the introduction of wearable technologies like the Apple Watch, the Whoop, Aura Ring, etc., people have they've gotten introduced to this one metric called HRV, or heart rate variability. For the audience that is not familiar with it for some reason, heart rate variability is essentially the variation in time between heartbeats, and it's a good measure of your nervous system. And so the bigger the score, the better it is, because that shows that there's a really big difference between your sympathetic nervous system when you are in like fight or flight mode or working out or something, and your parasympathetic system, which is when you're relaxed. So if your heart rate variability is like a 5, that's really bad, because there's literally no difference between when you're stressed out and when you're relaxed. Versus my good friend Chris Walker, who I'm positive must be one of the HRV elite athletes of the world. His HRV on average is like, I think 190, and his like peak HRV was like 216, which is insane. Me personally, I'm 39. My HRV, I've boosted it up like I think 5 or 10 points already. So now I'm like in the 40s and 50s range. And then more importantly, for those who are listening, most of my audience, they're somewhere between the ages of like 30 and 50. But like, just to give you an idea, for an elite HRV for somebody between the ages of 35 and 45, for men, it's about 60 plus or minus 9 points, and for women, it's 58 plus or minus 10 points roughly. But I wonder if you can kind of explain in simple terms how something like Moonbird can help boost HRV.
Right. It actually ties into what I just told. So when you practice slow breathing exercises, you really activate that parasympathetic nervous system. And so as a consequence, your HRV increases, the distance between the heartbeats increases, because you're changing this balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And so it's just one of the most easy ways to tap into into increasing your HRV. It's really powerful.
And mainly the way it improves the HRV is that something like Moonbird focuses on the parasympathetic side, which is lowering the heart rate.
Exactly.
So like and again, this just to, again, this is the reason why I wanted you on the show, is that tying back to sleep, for those who follow him, Brian Johnson has become like a big hit in the longevity world. He's the former founder he wasn't the founder, but he owned Venmo and he sold it, and he spends $2 million a year on his body, reversing his age, et cetera, et cetera. And so the one thing that he talks about that directly impacts sleep score more than anything else is your resting heart rate before you go to bed. And so something like Moonbird directly correlates with the ability to start lowering your resting heart rate over time, because it's training your parasympathetic nervous system. Is that the way to put it?
Yeah, exactly. So you enter this relaxed state, your heart rate starts to slow down, and your HRV will go up as a consequence. And the more you train that while you're doing the breathing exercises, you'll also see spillover effects outside when you're not doing these breathing exercises. You'll see that your default modus will improve as well. Exactly.
Got it. Now, for the people who are listening, like, I'm wondering, you have different applications, and I'll go back to the product page in a second, of like different types of users. Is there a certain group of like customers or users that started using Moonbird that surprised you? Like, you guys have been commercially available now and selling for a year. How long have you been selling the product for?
We're in the market for a couple of years. It took us like a year and a half to develop the first product, which is a Moonbird, but we now also have the Moonbuddy for kids, which is a great screen-free relaxation device for kids, because, we can all benefit from this. It's not just for people improving their HRV. Small children also have a lot of benefits of this. So actually that probably is a very niche user group that we didn't think of in advance. So within the adults section, we have people with stress, anxiety, sleeping issues, and that's what we targeted towards. But then we also have, more, I wouldn't say random, but things I didn't think of in the beginning, which is, for instance, women with menopause side effects, hot flashes, for instance. We also have some people using it, and we are not, as a disclaimer, we are not a medical device. So we're a consumer product, but we have gotten feedback from people also having autism and ADHD that they also use the product, and that's very beneficial. And that's really just because, stress is so omnivalent and so many people dealing with a lot of things. Stress is a aggravating factor. If you deal with a lot of stress, a lot of other things in your life will become worse as well. So solving that stress helps you to deal with a lot of the other things that you're struggling with. But when focusing on the parents, I found it so beautiful to get the feedback that parents said, this concept of this breathing device, this breathing bird, is so intuitive that my child started doing it. And I didn't even give them any instructions. They were curious about the product.
And
And
did you notice this like from posts on Instagram, or how did you like how did you get that insight? Because again, like being on the market for a year, it's a really big deal for a company, a consumer company especially, to say, okay, we're going to come up with like a kids version of this,
yeah,
right? So like what was the signal that you saw as a founder?
yeah, people were messaging us. They were on our customer support channels. They were indeed posting photos on Instagram and so on, tagging us. And that was really when that started to happen, like over and over again. We said we have to do something with this, because actually when we looked at the market, for adults, there are a handful of products doing similar things. I wouldn't say the exact same thing as what we're doing, but similar things as what we're doing. But if you look at the market for kids, there actually is nothing. And that's where it all starts, right? If we would all learn to breathe better and do meditation exercise and so on, if we would learn these techniques at school, we would be so better equipped to deal with life in general and to deal with ourselves. So that was really when for me it clicked, and I said, okay, this is the market where we actually need to be from a mission standpoint, right? So that's when we developed the Moonbuddy, and that's like a trimmed down version of the Moonbird. The Moonbird obviously also has like a heart rate sensor, gives biofeedback. There's an app associated with it, so you can really check the impact of your body. You can listen to audio guides and so on. And we removed all of that for the kids version. And the kids version is just a very simple tool that expands and contracts. There are two form factors. One is a bird, one is a bear.
Let me bring it up here. So if you guys go to moonbird.life, it's called the Moonbuddy. So we got BB the bird,
Yes.
which is like a blue bird, and then Barry the bear.
Yes.
So and essentially, and the reason why it's more than half the price of like the regular Moonbird is that a lot of the things that you would have, like the biometrics and stuff, like you don't necessarily need that for the kids version.
Exactly.
So is the kid version, it works without an app?
Yes. So we actually did a lot of co-creation to develop our products. We did that both for Moonbird as for Moonbuddy. We sat down with our end users. We had like discussions with them, interviews. We tested the prototypes. We collected feedback. We optimized our prototypes. And then we did live tests as well. So we're actually doing a test now with 40 children using the product for 1 month, children with sleeping issues, and to gather more feedback and, to further optimize and so on. And so we listened to them and we asked them, do you want to get the biofeedback? Is that necessary? Do you want an application? Do you want bedtime stories and so on? And parents were like, we got apps for that, we actually don't need that anymore. We think the most important USP is that it's a screen-free device that helps us children relax. And it's so intuitive. So we stripped it down, and all that was left was really like the breathing motion of the device. And that was the most important feature.
Got it. And by the way, something I do want to mention on your guys' website is that you do have this quiz. If you guys go to moonbird.life and scroll to the very bottom, and you'll see this take a quiz. How long have you had this quiz for, and what kind of learnings have you guys gotten from it?
The quiz is to gather more information about our customers, who's buying the product, what is the intended use and so on. It's really to make sure that we can optimize our products as much as possible, tailoring to the needs of our customers. So that's really, I'm actually pretty proud of that. We try to stay really close to our customers, listening to them, and also making sure that we use that as feedback to, improve our next products. And we're working on some pretty cool, exciting new stuff actually that I'll hope to share more about soon. Also coming from feedback from our users. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, and maybe that's kind of a good segue into like more on the investment and market size. So like for the investors who are listening, like, is this the breathwork market, biohacking market? Like, what market do you guys technically play in, and like, what's the size of it? You know.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on how much you zoom in and out, because the wellness market in general is gigantic and is only growing. I think there was a report of McKinsey about it yesterday, $500 billion in size, growing 4 to 5% every year. That's like the general wellness market.
That's a general one.
Exactly. Obviously, we just focus on a niche market, but even the mindfulness space in that is huge. But, do we really compete with the mindfulness products like the apps and so on, or is it more niche in breathwork? We see it as we're trying to focus on people with stress, anxiety, and sleeping issues, and that's around 1/3 of the global population, or let's say America and the US. And if we then zoom in on people that are still looking for a solution and are still open to these alternatives, the market is a couple 100 million people in size. And if you look at our home market, which is Belgium, we almost succeeded in selling 0.8% or converting 0.8% of our just total base here. So yeah, we see a huge market in front of us, and we're.
And right now for you, like for as a company, you're based in Belgium, but is your main customer base, is it in Belgium, is it in the US right now? What's been your main I guess region of like sales, like, or customers?
Yeah, we're still heavily skewed towards Europe in general, being
Oh, that's great though. So the reason why I say that is because if you're succeeding in Europe, Europe is generally not considered like a great market for consumers. If you can succeed there, you'll do amazing in the US, because the US is like kind of like the mecca when it comes to consumerism. We like buying things here in this country.
exactly. That's why we're so excited to come to the US. We really feel that we've got like proven product market fit, proven a go-to-market.
And you're available in the US. So, people can go and buy it who are based in the US. So you're just trying to focus more and grow in the US is what you're saying.
Exactly. US is quickly growing month over month, and we're really focusing. Everything is set up. We're available. We're doing like marketing and so on. We're just still growing over there, but we feel that we've got like proven product market fit and go-to-market fit in Europe, which is indeed a more difficult market to start with. Also considering the fragmentation and so on. And now we're heavily focusing on scaling the US.
Mm. And just for the investors listening, we'll sort of Shark Tank this, as they say, but like for, if you're comfortable sharing some figures, like right now, like roughly, like, are you able to share like the cost it costs you guys to acquire customers and your return on ad spend? Like where are your growth channels, and what have you kind of learned in the last year or two?
Yeah, so we actually have a quite broad range of marketing channels. Most of them, like the most marketing budget goes to paid ads, obviously. That's like the
Paid ads, I would imagine, on Instagram and TikTok.
Exactly. That's like the backbone of what we do. And that's then complemented with PR. PR is important for us as well, because it's a great way to reach a lot of people at the same time. And PR is wide, right? Actually, I really hope that we could at some day be a part of Shark Tank, for instance, because like TV opportunities are a great way as well to be in front of people. And I think this product would lend itself perfectly for that. So PR, Time's Best Invention, all those awards are really important for us. And then partnerships also, in the broad sense, being influencer partnerships, being brand partnerships, being affiliates. We have a really nice affiliate network as well. We work a lot with clinical psychologists, therapists, breathing coaches. And in Europe, we're even reimbursed by insurance companies. And that's really the level where we want to be at, right? We are doing the scientific evidence, we are collecting the papers, we're showing and demonstrating that our product really is effective. And if you have that traction, both from a clinical standpoint as from the market, then at some point the insurance companies want to work together with you because they also want to lower stress rates and help people sleep better.
So that's the next thing I was going to ask you is that like, do you have any plans to potentially, I don't know if you guys would need to even file it as a medical device. That obviously helps with like reimbursement for payers and everything, but like, do you have a plan to try and go more of a B2B route to get into clinics and like sleep centers and stuff?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, we are HSA and FSA approved, so people can.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, yes. So that's already like a first step in the US market. And then we are not a medical device. So we really focus on stress and relaxation, which helps, when people are dealing with some kind of issues. But I do not exclude us over time to go more into that medical side of things. But obviously, that's a completely different strategy for the company, because it's super costly. It's really time intensive and so on. So we steer away from making medical claims and we really focus on stress and relaxation for now. But I don't exclude us going into that direction. The scientific evidence, if you just strip it away from Moonbird, the product, if you just look at slow-paced breathing and you turn to the science is already there. There is so much scientific literature demonstrating the effects in also medical use cases.
Got it. And then just I want to go back also to the app. You mentioned that there is an app associated with this. So when you use the device, do you have to activate the app, or is it just tracking? How does it work? Like when I sit down to use the Moonbird.
Yeah, that's actually something that we're proud of as well. So the app is it's optional in the sense that because of the reason that I mentioned in the beginning, we didn't want people to mandatory open their app before doing a session. For instance, when you have sleeping issues or a panic attack, right? So you can see the app as a way to set the settings of your Moonbird. You can set your own breathing rhythm. We've got some preset breathing rhythms for sleep, for box breathing, but you can completely customize it to your own needs. You can even do a quick check-in. So we let you breathe at different rates, and then we see where your HRV is highest, which means that your nervous system is most comfortable at that breathing pace. And you can then select that as your default exercise. And then while you're doing an exercise connected with the app, during that exercise, you'll see your HRV and your heart rate displayed in real time.
And I was going to say this is something that's very unique to your device, is that showing real time HRV. And so what's interesting is that there is a another product. Are you familiar with HeartMath?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So I have a HeartMath device. So that's the device that just clips to your ear and it can measure your heart rate variability, and you use the app and it gives you these signals. But then like that's about it. I'm not able to train or anything with it. Whereas your device actually has some like biofeedback and like guidance on it, which I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was gonna say you do have on your app, I noticed you have heart rate, you have HRV, and you have coherence. Can you explain to the audience what coherence is?
Yeah, coherence is like a measure of how well your heart rate is syncing with your breathing. Because the idea is that when you breathe at a slow pace, your heart rate will start to synchronize with your breathing rate. And it will really start to follow this. If you would show it in a graph, you would see that your breathing rate is like an S curve, like a sinus curve going up and down, breathing in and out and in and out. And so your heart rate will start to mimic this. And the more that phenomenon happens, the more you are breathing in coherence, the more your heart is coherent with your breathing. And so that's really what we want to show. We want to see that sinus pattern in your heart rate curve as well.
Got it. And have you considered doing more like any potential like clinical studies to kind of like dive into more of the science of the effects of the products?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not a medical device company, but we don't have to do these studies per se, but science is important for us, and we think we have to contribute as well on that side of things and to show our product. And so that our product works. And so we have done a couple of studies. The first one that's published is in a peer-reviewed publication is in the sleep context. We're actually about to publish a second paper where we evaluating the preferences of users using a vibration-based breathing coach versus a like expansion and contraction breathing coach, which is a Moonbird. And there we looked at, brain waves and heart rate variability, and then the subjective preferences of these people. And we actually saw that people have a preference for these like organic motion that guides you to do these exercises versus vibrations, which is obviously often used in wearables such as the Apple Watch and so on. And we're also engaging in a research project with the kids right now. So 40 kids using the Moonbuddies as a sleep coach. And then we have a clinical trial planned for people with sleeping issues. We're doing another one in stressed students. So a lot of exciting research projects ongoing and about to be published.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I was going to say for the audience who's interested, at least the clinicians, on your website, I did notice if you go on your homepage and you scroll all the way down, there's a button to access scientific publication, and the publication is in Frontiers in Digital Health. It's evaluation of a tactile breath pacer for sleep problems, a mixed method pilot study, and overall, like at least when I read this. Statistical significance did stand out in the sense that you had like improved scores when it came to better subjective sleep quality, shorter sleep latency, which is essentially the ability to fall asleep, and then longer sleep duration. And then also there's something called NRSS, which is the perception of how refreshed you are, and that was improved. Also, the statistical significance was there for that as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, as we kind of round out the interview, I'm wondering, like, if you scope out, without having to talk about, like, you're working with some other products and stuff, but like 5-10 years from now, like, what's the big mission for you guys at Moonbird? If you scope out like 5 to 10 years from now in terms of the impact you can have.
We want to be the company that has made people aware of the fact that they can use their breath as a tool rather than just passively breathing our whole lives. We come to understand that our breath is a tool and we can actively use it to regulate our nervous system and to change our mood and to shift, how we feel, how we sleep, and so on. And building hardware products is just one way to do it. We're also looking at other options right now, and I think there are very cool AI developments that have happened the past few months as well that we are exploring in all kinds of routes, like looking at the biometric data that we collect, using it in the application for personalization purposes and so on. There is like so much that can be done right now. And I am so enthusiastic about telling more about what we're going to launch in a few weeks or months from now.
It's really exciting here. And the last thing, like one thing I did know is I kind of want to answer this myself personally, because like I hear these critics about criticism for different products, which is like if you do a search and on certain comments online, the main thing is like, oh, I can do this for free. Why would I use a device? My take, I want to hear your take. My take on this is that I don't need weights or workout equipment. I can work out for free. I can just do push-ups and squats, but it helps a lot more when you actually have equipment to use. And there's something I believe psychologically when you invest in something and you have something physical there to engage with, it helps you do the training that's needed, whether it's like breath work or exercise or anything. That's my take. I'm wondering like your take, if that's like the one main criticism you guys hear most often, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I think the most criticism is, why should I need a breathwork coach? Because I am already breathing the whole day, right? Am I not breathing then? And it's like, yeah, obviously you are, but there is a good way to do it, or there is a better way to do it, or there is a way to do it that can help you actually, regulate how you feel and so on. And so then the second question is, do I need a physical coach to do that? Or do I need to pay almost $200 for that? And then my answer is exactly what you mentioned. Like, I wish for all of us to just have, the capacity in ourselves to do everything on our own. But most people are, I guess, like I am, and I need some external motivation to do certain stuff. I need to go to yoga class to do a proper yoga session. I can do it on my own at home, but chances are that after 15 minutes, I'll drop out and I'll say, okay, I did my session for today. So I need these external motivators, and a fitness coach is one, a yoga teacher is one, a breathwork coach can be one as well. But obviously, you don't have that breathwork coach in your bed when you're having sleeping issues, right? So the proximity is what we wanted to solve, and this physical breathing coach solves that issue for people.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think like I'll be ordering and getting my my Moonbird soon. And one thing I was thinking about is that, I think at night when I don't need to use a screen is when I can just use the device without using the app. But in the mornings, I actually do a little bit of breath work myself, and that's the time where I can, pull that out in front of me and sort of see the changes in my HRV and coherence and everything.
It's really cool because we get that feedback a lot from people saying that they do their breathing exercises before going to bed, and then they see on their Aura and their Whoop that their HRV improve, their recovery score improves much more than when they're not doing their breathing exercises. So it's really cool to see, that those spillover effects that I mentioned before. It's really interesting, and so that's also something we want to integrate our product with those wearables and so on that you can really measure and track beyond your Moonbirds.
How I'm wondering for you, how many times a day do you personally use the product?
Good question. And so I still use it mainly for my sleeping issues. So I have one on my nightstand, obviously. And so whenever I feel that it takes me more than 15 minutes to fall asleep, I'll take my Moonbird with me, and then I'll do my breathing session. And that happens some months more times than other months. When I have less stress, I feel that I need it less. And then obviously I have one at my desk as well at Moonbird. So there are moments that I just use it throughout the day to do my breathing exercises. But my most use case is still, to fall asleep at night because it's so effective.
Got it. And so, as you guys raise more money for commercializing the product and developing more, your categories is you guys just want to own the breathwork space. That's the thing that you're trying to focus on.
Exactly. That's still a niche category that still can be claimed. And there aren't too many players out there. I think that, breathwork is on the rise. There are lots of breathwork studios popping up, a lot of things being done in that space. But when it comes to claiming the space, especially in the hardware niche market, that is something that we are doing.
Fantastic. Well, Stephanie, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. I had a blast speaking with you. Very excited for what you guys are doing. I love seeing like really cool, well-designed consumer products have an effect in the medical world. And so for those who are listening, if you know a clinician who's in sleep medicine, please forward this on to them, something they can recommend to their patients. If you know an investor, obviously send this on to them, because as a startup, Moonbird is always raising money. And if you're a consumer, go on their website, moonbird.life, buy the product. And if you use the product, go ahead and comment below. Let us know what you think about the product and your experience. So that being said, I'm your host, Omar Khatib. As always, we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.